My creation of this painting titled Pan-Africanism is inspired by the history of the great Marcus Garvey, Henry Sylvester Williams, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Kwame Nkrumah. Amongst others, they helped create a global movement dedicated to African independence. Pan-Africanism represents a movement that advocates for the unity and solidarity of African people of African descent, both within the African continent, in the United States, and throughout the world. The unity of African people globally is to share history, culture, and the struggle for liberation and self-determination, with a goal of achieving economic, political, and social empowerment. The reason this movement was created because no matter what part of the world we live in, we have been oppressed by a European system that don't want African people to unify and be great as a whole. African people have always been independent and indigenous to the land all over the world. Because of our ancestors throughout thousands of years migrated to different parts of the world and built civilizations. Over a period of time, all great history, knowledge, and indigenous land in Africa, the United States, Haiti, Australia, Brazil, the Caribbean island, and other parts of the world were stolen and conquered by the Persians and other Western countries. For centuries, millions of our ancestors lost their lives trying to survive slavery and wars and trying to defend their land from invaders. Pan-Africanism is to create love, unity, and build together amongst the descendants of African people around the world. Can you see the shape of the world map in my abstract painting?
And one of the things that's going to help to bring this about is the independence of Africa. One of the only reasons that we in the West have never organized, we have hated our image and our African image. And because Africa has been in the hands of people who have created an image of Africa that's negative and hateful. And proud of Africa, and we become proud of our African blood, our African heritage. And this is what is beginning to make the Africans in the Western Hemisphere today develop more race pride, and as this race pride develops, then it has a tendency to make us want to unite together and work together, and your Western imperialists and colonialists consider this to be a grave threat, more threat than communism or Marxism or socialism or anything else. The Africanism is what they consider to be the real threat. The Organization of Afro-American Unity sees the only hope for the black man in America in a strong Africa, and the necessity of the Afro-American becoming inseparably linked with the overall program that's existing on the African continent. The two problems must be solved together, and the two forces must go forward together. And so the Organization of Afro-American Unity has a program to link the Afro-Americans with the Africans and the Africans with the Afro-Americans. When I say Afro-Americans, I mean those throughout the entire Western Hemisphere. This is our only hope. Our hope is in a strong Africa. And when Africa is strong, our position in America will be one of respect. But if Africa is weak, we will never be in a position of respect in America. They used to have a saying that one doesn't have a Chinaman's chance, but they don't say that anymore. They used that expression back when China was weak. But now since Mao Zedong has been successful in making China a strong country, the Chinese have more chance than anybody else. So this saying has become outdated. Well, just as it took a strong China to give a Chinese person respect, wherever that Chinese person is found on this earth, when we get a strong Africa, the person of African origin or African ancestry will be respected any place on this earth, even in America. But he will not be respected in America until Africa is strong, just as the Chinaman wasn't respected abroad until China became strong. And in all of these, many of these countries in South America and Central America, and even in Canada, they are heavily populated with people whose ancestors came from Africa. So when you total up the number of Afro-Americans, real Afro-Americans, in the Western Hemisphere, there are perhaps 100 million. And if these people ever unite among themselves, not only is it necessary for the Afro-Americans in the United States to be organized, but it's also necessary for the Afro-Americans in the Caribbean, or the Afro-Cubans, the Afro-Brazilians. It's necessary for all of them to be organized. And then once they are organized in each place, we have to organize among ourselves so that the Afro-American in the United States will be working in conjunction in a coordinated program with those who are in Cuba and those in Brazil and those in Venezuela and those throughout the Caribbean, in Haiti and in the West Indian Islands. And in this way, we actually get strength. And it's not an accident that there's no organization existing in the Western Hemisphere that's designed toward that end. It would be a direct threat to imperialism as it really exists, and to colonialism as it exists in the West. Today, for the first time, the black people of the West are beginning to look homeward. They're beginning to look back toward the mother continent of Africa, and they're gaining spiritual strength from these roots. The African continent is on the rise, the motherland is on the rise, and our people all over the Western Hemisphere are looking back at this rising continent and the unity of that continent, and it's giving us strength and hope for the future. And for the first time, not only is the black man on the African continent fighting and seeking and fighting for his place in the sun, but his fight is putting the same spirit in the black people in the West, and we are also seeking and fighting for our place in the sun, and we will not rest until that place has been secured.